Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Eric Allen, and it's another edition of Christ Talk. Tonight, I've got two brothers with me on tonight, and we're going to be discussing about a man. All right, and I've got to my right Ryan, and to my left I've got Mikey, and we're just going to have a intimate discussion about what it is to be a man, what it is in society, what it is in the church, what does it mean to us when it comes to manhood and how that is presented to the world. How y'all doing tonight?
Good,
Blessed.
Glad to
Such
be
a
in the
safe
building.
answer. All right, it's good. All right. So I thank y'all for coming tonight because I think it is one of the first episode we did was with men, and I got a lot of requests. When y'all gonna bring the men back?
Really?
So I was like, okay, we need to do this, and I thought April might be the time to do that. So here we are, and I don't want to have the same conversation we've already had, but I want to delve a little further into what it means to be a man, what it means to be a man who is also Christian, and what that looks like in the world and things of that nature. So, Ryan, what does it mean to be a man to you?
Uh, I mean, two things that stick out to me is just protector and provider.
Protector and provider. All right. And how about you, Mikey? What do you think?
Two things that stick out to me: leading by example, and being a man after God's own heart.
All right. Now, in the CE version, 1 Timothy 6 and 11, it says, Timothy, you belong to God, so keep away from all these evil things. Try your best to please God and to be like him. Be faithful, loving, dependable, and gentle. I think you guys kind of touched on it in the roundabout way. I didn't give y'all that scripture, and y'all showed up with it. I love that. So when we are talking about being a provider, when we're talking about being a protector, I mean, are we only to protect our wives? Are we only to protect our children? When we talk about being a protector, who are we talking about protecting?
Uh, that's a good question. Um, really, I think it's everybody, kind of, sort of, family. Sometime it may be friends, close, loved ones or peers. The youth.
All right, all right.
Yeah, I think it's a broad spectrum.
How about you, Mikey?
Protect your generation, your family. Like I say, your family. Praying over your kids.
Okay, I
That's
love
being
that.
a protector.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, leading by example.
Leading by example. All right,
That's
I love it.
That's you protecting your children. You want them to have the right foundation. When they grow up.
All right.
You know.
That's a good one. I love that because what I was thinking immediately is when we talk about a protector, most people think about the physical, but there is more to protection than just the physical. Like Mikey said, prayer. Prayer is very important. We can be protectors in a passive sense by trusting God to do some of the heavy lifting, right? And so I love the fact that you said prayer because that's one of the most powerful ways we can protect our loved ones. That is one of the best ways we could possibly cover all our bases when it comes to that. I mean, and then when it comes to that, even we don't have to leave it at protection. We can even talk about the provision because if we depend on God to make the provisions for us, not that we're not out there working, because a man that doesn't work doesn't eat. That's Bible. But there is a responsibility that we have to also trust him to carry the heavy lifting for us, where we need to depend on him. God requires us to depend on him. And I think that is an important part of being a man, is being able to depend on God, even as a protector, even as a provider. All right. Faith and masculinity. Faith and masculinity is, for some people, sounds like an oxymoron. And we have to be careful to not allow the world to give us a misconception of what masculinity is. You hear, I don't want to get into a big discussion on toxic masculinity, but we hear a lot about it in the media and things of that nature. And people want to water down manhood, right? But masculinity is needed in the church. Masculinity is needed in the home. Masculinity is needed on the workplace, in the community. That energy, as some people would call it, is absolutely necessary. All right. So when we talk about faith and masculinity, what does that look like for you?
I'm not sure what it looks like, but I know you can go to the Bible to read about it and to sharpen your skills on it. You know what I mean?
You say you don't know what it looks like, but you can go to the Bible. Mm-hmm. So we need to use the Bible as our source, as our director. Mm-hmm. How about you, Mikey? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Faith and masculinity. In terms of faith, like, are you referring to faith in God or?
Faith in God, our faith in what we believe. In most churches, not all, but in most churches, there are not a lot of men. So there's not a lot of masculine energy in the church, right? We happen to be blessed to be in a church where the numbers are pretty even, which is kind of rare. And so we have a lot of the masculine energy here. And so there's a good balance. But in a lot of places, there isn't. And for some people, that might be a little unnerving for them because, there's a lot of men here, Yeah. But I think it's essential. But how do you feel about faith and masculinity?
I feel like faith and masculinity is, that should be like a big part of, especially our culture, Black culture. Like you said, a lot of the Black churches, have. I grew up around a lot of missionaries. A lot of church mothers. Okay. And, a lot of times people look at at men like if you go to church, then
there's something weak about you.
Yeah, there's something weak about you, or you might be happy. You might be, got a little sugar in your tank.
Okay.
But away from that, I think faith and masculinity is definitely needed in today's society because, like Psalms 37 says, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord.
All right.
So
it's absolutely essential.
It's essential.
That masculine men follow Christ. Right? So I understand that. That makes a lot of sense to me. And even aside from faith and masculinity as the idea, when we look at men in church, and not just the Black church, the numbers are usually lean towards feminine when it comes to church in general. Even when you watch television or movies, the woman might be going to church and the husband's like, oh no, I'm just gonna sit on the couch and drink a beer or whatever the case may be. But there are some churches that do have a good male presence, and it's very important. Just like in the home, the male presence is important. In the church, the male presence is important.
I also, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I also believe it's how you was raised too. I was raised where we had to go to church every Sunday.
Okay.
Whether it was with my grandma, whether it was with my dad, whether it was with my mom, we had, there was some type of, you had to answer to somebody. And a higher power, and that was Jesus Christ.
Right,
That was
right.
God.
Mhm.
So um, yeah, I also think faith and masculinity could, that could go as far back as how you were raised.
Oh yeah.
Some people weren't raised to go to church.
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean? Some
Mhm.
people weren't raised. Some people, like P. Hall says a lot of times, like Pastor Hall says a lot of times, you can't don't give your children a choice. Make them go.
Mhm, mhm.
you know.
But I think because that's about setting the tone and the standard for your household and for the vision that you have for your family, right? So when we passively parent, then we sometimes fail our children, and then we find in community, not just our community, but in communities, period, where there was an absence of faith. There's also an absence of moral judgment. There's an absence of understanding of how things should be, and there's this unbalance that takes place because there was no structure, there was no standard. All right. Now, when we talk about being a man, what are some of the misconceptions about men that you'd like to set straight? Because I think, especially in today's society, people have got it all twisted about what being a man means. Ryan, what are your thoughts on that?
I know one off the top of my head. All men are not dogs.
All men are not dogs. Let's talk about that. Okay, all men are not dogs. Can a man have been a dog and be redeemed from being a dog?
True, he can, but not every man is like that.
Ever?
At every second of the day, every day. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right. All right. So when you say all men are not dogs, when we talk about being a dog, what what is that? What are we identifying?
Every man isn't, lusting after multiple women every day throughout the year. That's what I mean.
Amen.
All right. Well, Ryan, you're married to my sister, so you better not be, right? So,
You had to go there. Huh? Okay.
no, but seriously, I believe you're a good dude. So, when you talk about all men are not dogs, is it possible for a man to not be a dog but hang out with dogs? Because they say when you lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. How do you feel about that?
I mean, everybody has their own choice who they want to be around, but birds of a feather flock together.
Birds of a feather flock together. All right. And so, does that automatically make one a dog if he spends time with dogs?
No, that doesn't make you. It doesn't mean that you're, participating in their activities, or it doesn't mean that their ideas are your ideas. But, if you hang around that long enough, eventually, your ideas may become their ideas, or your actions may start to fall into some of their actions and what they're doing.
Because that's all about having a stronger sense of self, whether or not it's them or you. And if it's them, then they're going to draw you into their cesspool.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have that stronger presence, then maybe you can draw them to faith.
Mm-hmm.
Mikey?
Maturity.
Immaturity?
Yeah, immaturity.
Okay.
That's that's what you know being a dog is. People in high school.
Okay.
They tend to say things, outside of their mouth.
Okay.
Inappropriate things.
Mm-hmm.
It even happens, for adults, older adults.
Because we don't all grow out of it,
Right, we don't all grow out of it. You know what I mean? So I think that word, a dog, is just like, that's just another word for saying somebody is very immature.
Someone is very immature. I can get with that because he may not even be dealing with a lot of different women, but maybe he's just not a good guy. right?
Yeah.
Because he's not mature enough. Maybe he didn't see it growing up.
Yep.
The crazy thing is that there are a lot of present fathers, but we know that the statistics show that when the father is in the home, children grow up to be better for society. When they grow up when the father is in the home, it doesn't mean that the father can't parent outside of the home, but he has better results, more likely, when the father is in the home with the children, whether he be married to the mother or whether he be a single father raising children on his own. When the father's in the home, it does make a difference. So when we talk about the misconceptions, what are some other misconceptions that we have when it comes to men that we want to like just really get rid of? Because while being a dog is a big one, because you always hear that, we hear it a lot. We're inundated with that narrative. But what are some other misconceptions that we want to get rid of? How about this? Sensitivity when it comes to being a man. Can we be sensitive and be masculine at the same time?
Yes, we can be sensitive and we can be masculine at the same time. I recently just had a talk, with one of my homeboys. He's going through some things in his relationship, and I guess some other women and other men got involved. I don't want to tell all his business, but I think women a lot of times, and this is just my perception.
Okay.
I think women a lot of times they allow men to cheat because they have this sense of like men are supposed to be hard, and men aren't supposed to cry. Men aren't supposed to have feelings.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's okay.
He's being a man.
He's
so
being
let
a
him,
man,
let
so
him
let
do
him
those
be a
things.
man.
Okay.
And I feel like that's why a lot of times women just they just let it go.
They let it go.
You know,
Because they believe that that's what a man is supposed to be.
That's what they.
And when a man
Exactly.
shows something different, how do they respond to that man? I remember before I got married, well before I got married, but I think I even said this to my wife once or twice because we used to work together. I'm a good guy, but if I'm not hitting you, then I'm not attractive.
Right.
And I think that is for an immature woman. That is for a woman that was raised in an environment where maybe there weren't any men, and this is what they were told men are supposed to be. I remember the first time I saw a man cry. He was a young man. He was my cousin's boyfriend, and she had broken up with him, and he cried. And I said to my mama, he was crying. And she says to me, well, a man can cry when something is important to him and he's hurt about it. But had my mother said, oh, he's weak, then that would have implanted something in me that told me that I wasn't allowed to cry. I'm thankful that wasn't the case. I've been able to be afforded the opportunities to see men cry. And I've been afforded the opportunities to cry myself. But that's not what we all get. That's not what we all experience. And so then we have these misconceptions that if a man cries, he's weak. If a man expresses his emotions, he is weak. But what we're saying here is that there is strength in weakness. Even in the Bible, it talks about when we are weak, we are strong, because Christ is the one that is providing that strength. So when we talk about these misconceptions, are there any other misconceptions that we want to address? Because we want to dead some of these misconceptions.
Let me see. Misconception. Another misconception would probably be, I don't know, men run. Well, I don't know. Maybe all men run away from their responsibilities. Not all men do that.
Okay. All right. Responsibilities. Being afraid of responsibility, like the baby boy syndrome.
Yeah, the movie.
Well, right, because it talked about that syndrome, how the reason why he's called baby boy is because he still lives at home with his mama. and he's still expecting his mother to take care of him in a sense. And so we do have some men who are afraid of responsibility, and they do have that kind of baby boy type mentality where it's never their fault. It's always somebody else's fault, and it's always somebody else's responsibility to fix it. But when we're talking about men being men, we have to own our responsibilities, and we have to own how we respond to situations, hardship, struggles, the realities of life. Because everything is not going to be peaches and cream. Everything isn't going to be easy. Everything is not going to work out just as we expected it. As someone who is a recovering perfectionist, I am learning to deal with the unexpected better than I have before. But how do we get away from the misconception that most men are living in that baby boys type of syndrome?
Go ahead.
So how do we
dead that?
How do we get away from that? Oh, we just talked about it earlier. By leading by example.
Leading by example.
Leading by example, handling your responsibilities.
Handling your responsibilities, right?
You know,
Okay.
do what you're supposed to do. And like I said earlier, you know, one of the things that I say to myself nowadays is, I say it to my wife too, but I say where was my example? Or like when I'm talking to her, or I'll say where to myself, I'll say, where is my example? Or still is, like, where is my example? You know, speaking from, you know, not a seasoned older man, but like maybe someone like 10 years older than me. Like, you know, what young man who's a little bit older than me, I can look at and say like, oh wow, they're doing this, I need to be doing this, or you know what I mean? Like, where's my example at?
Right. So like mentors, in a sense, but
yeah.
because we don't have to have a formal mentor, right? There are people that we should be able to see within our community, within our church, that we admire something that they do, or how they handle certain aspects of life, and then say, okay, that is someone who is modeling it the way I want to do it. Go ahead, Mikey.
My father is a really good role model. Like, you know, there are so many ways. There are so many things that he's shown me how to not be a baby's boy.
Okay,
you know?
all right. But that's because he was present,
He was present, yeah.
and that does make a difference.
But my mother and my father, they split up when I was 2.
Okay.
But my mom, she shit me off with my dad because she knew. She already knew.
Right.
You know, I can't raise him like you can.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I've lived with my dad. I mean, I've gone back and forth my whole life, but my mom, you know, she didn't mind me living with my dad. You know.
And I think that's commendable on your mother's part, because she understood that it would take a man to raise a man. I didn't live with my father after my parents separated, but I had a father figure in the house, right? So there was someone there. Did he model everything the way he should? Maybe not. But there were some nuggets that he was able to endow within me, and those nuggets have stayed with me. And even the things that may not have been the best, I learned from those as well, because we can learn from successes as well as mistakes, and they can make us better, because we don't have to follow in the same footsteps that were walked incorrectly. Ryan, you were raised in a 2-parent home, meaning both your parents raised the both of you, or not the both of you, all of you.
Yeah.
And so your first example would be your father, right? And so what was modeled, because I see you as a good dude, right? So what was modeled in your home that makes you the man that you are?
According to my father?
According to your father.
I think, like I was just saying, you know, somebody who is, you know, responsible and, fulfilling his responsibilities and being a protector and being a provider. And, those are like some very key things right there. That's what I was basically saying. Like, if you have that one good, person or older gentleman that you can see doing that as a young person, that's going to spark some things in you. And then when you start to grow up, and the more that you handle your business and you're doing your responsibilities, the younger gentleman is looking at you saying, "Oh wow, I need to," and it should just be a domino effect like that. But
Oh yeah.
The more men who are not doing that or doing the opposite, and then you have a lot of younger men looking at them, and it's like, oh, they don't do that, so I don't have to do that, or
Right.
oh, they don't do this, I don't have to do this, and then that's the bad domino effect.
The bad domino effect. All right, let me ask you guys this. And that was good. I do like that because leadership is absolutely essential. But is there a pressure to live up to others' expectations of what a man is? Do you feel any type of pressure?
Honestly,
I don't.
I don't feel any.
You don't
type
feel the
of
pressure?
I was raised to have a strong will.
Okay.
My mom even raised me to to have a strong will. If if she want me to go that way, and I see something that I wanted over there, I was gonna try to go over there, but she was gonna still,
I got
lead me
you.
to the right direction.
Got you.
I have a real strong will. So
She empowered you to still trust your own instinct,
Right.
but also guide you
Exactly.
when you went off course.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely important. And I don't want it to be misunderstood that women are not important. I think both the father and the mother are both just as important as the other. And we need them both. That's why God set up life the way he did, to have a husband, a wife, and then they raise children together so that they can see both sides of everything, so that there is the nurturing, so that there is the masculine energy that is happening, that shows how provision is done, shows how protection is done, shows how priesting is done, meaning that leadership guiding that family to follow someone greater than themselves, and that someone is God. So all of that is essential. And then seeing that the side of the mother that is nurturing, the one that will not coddle, but that will be sensitive and empathetic, but also help you to grow into who you're supposed to be. It is essential that both of those are seen in the home, that both of those are experienced, because when we know that when we lack one or the other or both, it impacts how we end up going out into the world. So it's all essential. Now, you guys don't feel any of those pressures, but I know that there are people out there that have a pressure of living up to other people's expectations. And I think sometimes those expectations that others place on people cause people to either excel or stumble and fall and find it very hard to get back up. And we just have to be empowered as individuals to not allow the pressures of society, the pressures of family, friends, the pressures of any one or thing to then cause us to not live up to who God has called us to be. I think that is what it's really going to boil down to. And when we guide our men to Christ, faith and masculinity will help. Faith in their masculinity will help them to be the men that not just the church needs, but that the world needs. All right. Thank y'all for coming out tonight. This conversation went a little faster than I thought it would, but I enjoyed you guys. Thank you for your insights. tonight you were able to hear from a couple of our brothers. Next month, we're going to hear from the sisters. So be looking forward to the next episode. And that is it for tonight. Be bold, be boundless, be blessed.